You are now watching the amazing Mets Pregame Show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
Oh yeah, we are back and better than ever. The amazing Mets Pregame Show is finally back the way it ought to be. Myself and Chris, we are finally back for the stretch run on September 3rd, and we are talking about meaningful games in September, playoff race baseball. The Mets have 24 games to go, and we are here to talk all about it. The Mets are trying to go for 6 in a row, 10 games over 500, 21 games over 500 since May 30th, and we are excited to talk about it with you guys. Chris, welcome back, and how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Vacation was good. Time off was good. Thanks for everybody for sticking around on the channel. I definitely appreciate that. But we are back and better than ever. The Mets are hot. They're getting hot at the right time. And we're here to talk about a potential series win over the Boston Red Sox. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to be back in general. It's been a busy last couple of weeks for me in terms of moving. You can see my background. I finally got my podcast background all in place, my vacations, all that good stuff. But I appreciate you all being here. So make sure to hit those thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. But let's talk about some damn Mets baseball. How about it?
Absolutely. I mean, this team has been really, really good. I mean, during the Arizona series, that tough loss in Arizona, it felt like rock bottom. It felt like the season was over. It didn't feel good. And the Mets come back, win that series, sweep the White Sox, take first game against Boston. And look, less than a week, they gained 3.5 games. They're a half a game out of a wild card spot. They're in prime position to do what they need to do to make the playoffs. And I'm excited. Like, look, we believed in this. I wouldn't say we 100% believed in this team, but we felt just by our predictions that this team is going to be better than a lot of people thought. I don't know if, I think we were both confident in our predictions, 85 and 87 wins. If we were really confident in it, we got laughed at. We got, LOL Mets all over the place for months, especially in May. But you see how good this team can be when they play as expected. At least a lot of these guys on this team. Now, the most shocking thing, Chris, and we're going to talk about this, obviously, has been the starting pitching. Remember how many Mets fans saying that we don't have no ace? Well, we kind of have two, and that's Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. We saw Luis Severino yesterday. We saw Sean Manaea the other day against the White Sox. They've been outstanding. And listen, I go to war with either one of those guys in game one of a series in a playoff spot. I know we're not there yet. I know, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but that's why I think it's more exciting because of the fact that it's not necessarily the offense that is doing everything, because we all believe that the offense was going to carry this team. And I even said it, that the offense is the only way this team's going to make the playoffs is if the offense does what they need to do, because the pitching is solid, but for them to pitch like this is completely outstanding, Chris. I'm loving it, because to have two guys that I wouldn't say transform themselves, because Luis Severino has stuff like an ace, but Sean Manaea completely changed everything about him when it came to just watching Chris Sale and changing the way he, throws, and he looks like a totally different pitcher. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this was a group of starting pitchers that in the second half I said was my personal biggest worry in terms of sustaining their success that they had in the first half. And we've kind of seen some, I guess, rocky starts, right, in between. Sean Manaea definitely had one, although he's been absolutely stellar, like you said. Jose Quintana has had a couple here and there in between in the second half. But all in all, this group, right, the personnel, the names on paper that we would we, either of us, have expected this type of performance through and through from these 5 to 6 guys that have been in the rotation? Oh, and by the way, Kodai Singh is not part of that picture for the most part, right? Like, we really me personally, because I don't really want to speak for you, but I know that I think that we both agree on this, did not expect this type of production. Now, obviously, Luis Severino has been fantastic, in my personal opinion, and a lot of people have different opinions on if we should resign him or not. But you know me, if you know me on this channel, you know I'm in the camp of re-signing him. Sean Manaea, definite re-sign after he probably inevitably opts out. But let's talk about another guy, the guy that's going on the bump tonight, David Peterson, 8-1, right? A 2.83 ERA. I believe it's around 2.8. And I apologize, guys. I'm going off the cuff. I'm all over the place. I have literally been on travel. This is my first day back, so apologies. Bear with me. I had to stay up and watch Mets games at 2 a.m. local time overseas, but I did it anyways because I love our New York Mets. But David Peterson has been an absolute jet. A lot of people always talk about the run production that he gets in his starts versus a guy like Tyler McGill, although Tyler McGill's stuff in the advanced metrics, right? His whip primarily, walks and hits per innings pitch, might be better than David Peterson's. It matters, right? What the stat line is at the end of the game. Are you providing the Mets with quality innings, right? Longevity, 5, 6, 7+ innings. And that's what you can depend on and rely on out of David Peterson. Now, I don't want to jinx him. It's his birthday. So happy David Peterson. Hopefully he goes out there and performs. But I really do think that this rotation, right? We know Sean Manaea and Luis Severino, like you said, have been headlining it. This rotation would be night and day different if David Peterson didn't have this type of resurgence. So I just want to make sure that we're coming on here and give David Peterson the absolute props and respect that he deserves, because I know a lot of people still aren't on board with David Peterson and they're still skeptical about him. But for right now, the sample size that we've seen out of him in 2024 so far, I'm bought in. I'm convinced.
Yeah, and look, I understand Met fans have, PTSD when it comes to David Peterson, but you know what? If you really listen to a couple of his interviews and talk to a lot of people that spoke about David Peterson, that hip was a real problem. He was pitching with a bad hip for a while, and he was always in pain, according to him. Now, maybe it was an excuse, maybe it's actually facts, but I mean, there's no denying the numbers. Like, he's been that good. And look, we knew Peterson had the stuff, right? When he first came up, and he's still very young, which is, it felt like he's been here for like 12 years. Like, he felt like he's been on this team forever. He's been through like 4 regimes, and it just feels like he's been here forever. And he's still under 30. And, this is a guy that if he comes out, he came out of nowhere. And if that hip was the real issue and it just hindered his windup or, just the way he pitches, can't repeat his mechanics. I mean, something that simple that is now fixed, if that can make him I'm not saying this good, but close to this. I mean, we can have 3 guys in a rotation in Luis Severino, Manaea, and Peterson next year. And now we don't have to go out and spend on 2 or 3, because that's what we talked about. Wow, we have to go out and spend a ton of money on 2 or 3 rotation arms. We might not have to, spend a ton of money like we were expecting going into this season, because we have many options at this point now. Now, again, it all can blow up in our face in the next 24 games, and we can be bitching and moaning once again. But I feel very confident with David Peterson on the mound. Like, it's hard for me to say as a Met fan. I think most of us kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop, but I don't have that mentality anymore when he's on the mound. I feel confident. Like, look, are we going to win today? Sure, of course we can. But I feel like we're going to get a quality start and a chance to win when David Peterson's on the mound. You know what? I'm starting to feel like that. I have been feeling like that with Manaea and Severino. Like, I was very confident yesterday the Mets going to win that ball game, and we'll get into the game in a little bit. But, having 3 guys in your rotation that you're confident in, these are your 3 guys that you're going to be pitching in a playoff series, at least the top 3. I mean, whatever, way they're going to, put it out, because I think you could choose anyone to pitch game 1, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I might lean a little bit more towards Manaea in game 1 if that comes to that. But, man, I'm confident in this team right now because they're showing, like, confidence and, like, I guess walking with a little bit of swag. You saw Lindor coming around the bases. You see him sliding and just pumping his fist. I mean, that was 1 run, and you could just tell that they were rejuvenated going on that 10-game road trip and going 7-3 and finally coming back home, Chris. I mean, the players are excited, so why shouldn't we be excited?
Yeah, and the thing is, this whole time we were kind of wondering when the pitching and the hitting was going to come in stride together, right? I mean, it has at glimpses of the season, but when are both of these groups going to get hot at the right time, right? Edwin Diaz, the I guess meltdown and the grand slam he gave up. Everyone thought it was the end of the world, and he comes back out right there again and throws all fastballs, and he looks absolutely electric. So like, it's an up and down type season, but they're getting it together at the right time, and both groups are getting it together at the right time. And I think the bullpen has been getting it together as well. Edwin Diaz in particular. Like Frank is saying here in the chat, we can make a whole live stream talking about why everybody who was anti-David Stearns and the moves he made in the offseason and at the trade deadline were wrong. Jesse Winker's coming around. Phil Maton, a guy that David Stearns got 3 whole weeks before the trade deadline, has like a 1.77 ERA for the New York Mets, and he looked absolutely electric last night. Like, we can talk about all this stuff, but the most important thing is not proving everybody wrong or proving people right. It's about the Mets winning baseball games, them winning series, them going out on a 10-game road trip, going 7-3 against quality opponents that they're currently looking up at, and maintaining pace, at least at the bare minimum, with the Atlanta Braves, who they are now only a half game out of the wild card of. So it's a great time to be a Mets fan. You're right, 100%. The Mets are walking with a lot of swagger, right? Pete Alonso's got 3 home runs in the last 7 games, the last 7 days. He's finding the long ball. Francisco Lindor. I mean, do I have to say anything about Francisco Lindor? All you have to do is watch Mets games to know what he's doing right now. Absolutely electric in the MVP conversation. Everybody, right? And it doesn't even boil down to the core. The smaller guys too. Luis Torrens with 2 doubles last night, right? Francisco Alvarez has been up. He's been down with the bat. He's been solid defensively, but what is he doing with the bat? Well, you got a quality backup catcher in Luis Torrens come in when his name is called, right? And provide extra base hits for you. That's something that, oh, by the way, here's a David Stearns edition too. I don't know if anyone knows that. Anywho, listen, I don't want to go on a rant here, but everything that I'm seeing from the Mets right now, right? Even if they were 4 games back of the wild card just a couple days ago, what is it, 4 or 5 days ago, right? And now they're on the surge. They're playing good baseball. They're playing the game the right way. And that's something that, honestly, if you believe in the process, if you trust in the process, like Joel Embiid likes to say, right? The popular saying, I trust in the process. And the process of what I'm seeing right now is good, and therefore that's going to translate to wins more often than not. And that's how I view a season of 162 baseball games. And I know not every fan is going to have that sort of patience, that sort of I guess thought process, and I understand that. That's why we're kind of up here talking to everybody in this light, because we understand how long of a season it is. But right now, it's clutch time. It's strap down time, and it's time to win baseball games, because the fact still remains, right? After Edwin Diaz blew that game, right, in Arizona, the talk of the town, I know Hector said it on his X account, I couldn't have agreed more. Those types of games are killers, because when you get a performance like the Mets had in May, it limits you to not being able to make those type of mistakes in games and lose those type of games that you should win, especially in late August and early September. So they have still minimal margin for error, the New York Mets, that is, because of what they did earlier in the season. And that fact is always going to remain. So we'll see competitive baseball on September 3rd, right? When a lot of people early in the season, especially before they went on that massive run to get back in it, didn't believe there would be competitive baseball past September or past August even. We're here, baby. Let's have some fun with it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting because, not only is it, was it, look, we understood that we had confidence in this team starting the season, but it's still unexpected. Like, especially with the May we had and 11 games under, and it seemed like we were going to be talking about Alonso getting traded, a lot of these 1-year contract guys getting traded. This team could have looked a lot different if things didn't go right. But we talked about with the core over and over again. Look, there's certain guys in the core that still, worry me a little bit in big spots coming down to the wire. But I just feel like I even said it the other day that I'm giving them a little bit of. I have this hope that they're gonna come through during these last 24 games because I feel like this team's gonna make. I made a proclamation the other day. The Mets are gonna make the playoffs. I don't know who they're gonna pass. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I'm feeling confident every single day now that this team's gonna make the playoffs. I don't think Lindor is not going to let it happen. I know it's only one guy, but this guy has been determined. That's my guy. I know I'm going to say to the day the season's over, Lindor, I mean, he completely took over the team. Like, do you know how hard a guy who's an outsider take over a team like he did when Alonso was beloved by the fan base and the organization? And he took it from his arms. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. I think it helped this team because I always felt like he was the leader that was in the shadows of Pete Alonso. And I think it made him a better player and an MVP type of player. And that's what I was trying to bring up. Not really trying to get on Alonso at all because Alonso, I still think, has a week or two in him, hopefully down the stretch, where he helps us get over the hump and make the playoffs. But Lindor completely changed his whole year around. And I think it was finally Pete Alonso taking a little bit of a back seat in not a bad way, but just a way like, all right, this guy is an all-star. This guy is one of the best shortstops in baseball. Let me take a little bit of a step back because, look, it took control over this team. And you see the energy, not only with Lindor, but even, look, you saw the high five and the fist pump with Lindor and Alonso. Like, game over as soon as that happened. Like, you felt that game was over. And going yesterday's game, it was such a good quality game with pitching and insurance runs that God knows we talked about enough. This team would score a bunch of runs early and not score anything at all. And you see the opponent slowly catching back up. There was no chance for Boston yesterday. It just felt like the Mets were in control. And it felt like this even in the Arizona series. And I know we split against the Padres, but it felt like we were in control of them series and those games. And I felt like that yesterday. Like the Mets were always in control. Even if it got a little scary at some point, I felt like they were in control. And when this Mets team is in control, they're very hard to stop. And I love the confidence, not just from an individual player, but the entire team. Everybody's on the top step. Everybody's cheering for him, for everybody. That wasn't like that when things are going bad, or even last year. It felt like every man for themselves. This team actually likes each other. And we talk about chemistry, Chris, a lot. It might not mean a lot in a win-loss column because you still got to perform on the field. But when you got each other's back, it's amazing how much better a team can be when the talent actually shows up and when you got each other's back, because you can tell this team actually enjoys playing with each other. But the best part, and that I've seen with this team, is that they take control over games and they usually don't give it back. And it's a great way to try to end this season because they need it. They need every win right now. And I'm just confident as hell, just like they're looking right now.
Yeah, 100%, Rob. I mean, that's the key too. It's like, how do they like lock in? Are they locked in as a team, as a cohesive unit? You see that through and through, and that's what makes or breaks good teams, right? Like that's what turns a team from, obviously there's a bunch of individuals, right? And you can go and be talented and all that, and you could probably make the playoffs, right? But how do you lock in as a cohesive unit, right? We don't know how they interact or mingle in the dugout, or not even the dugout, the clubhouse, right? We're not there to observe that, but you can see the effect in the dugout. You bring in guys that lock in, right? Day in and day out. Everybody during the game, and this is something that's like outside of the actual game that's being played within the lines, but like you see the camera angles in the dugout. Everybody's at the top step. Everybody's locked in. A huge play is made or a huge hit, right? Happens. You see the celebrations, everybody at the top step.
Yep.
A primary example of this, a guy that I see in every single photo with the OMG sign, the top step, exaggerated celebrations, hasn't even been here for half the season. And his name is Jesse Winker. Like, that guy is locked in, and he's been locked in ever since he put on that Mets uniform. So I appreciate that aspect. Not only the Mets are playing good baseball, the vibes are immaculate at Citi Field. You had Stephen Curry yesterday at Citi Field. I don't even know why he was there, but he was there watching the New York Mets. Like, these guys are out there having fun, and the results are showing. And I really do like that point by you. And I figured I'd try to emulate that and try to speak up more to that, because obviously we can sit here, right, and assess and analyze the game in between the lines, each pitch, whether it was a mistake, whether it was a great pitch. Severino, by the way, beautiful backdoor sliders yesterday. Beautiful backdoor sliders. I love those sliders. But what goes on beyond the lines in the dugout, the clubhouse, etc.? I mean, that also matters too. We were having reports last year in 2023 in the lost season that the dugout, the clubhouse was not buying in, right? We didn't get any names. We made our own assumptions. I don't want to say the name, but Tommy Pham made some sort of comments, and everybody was speculating in the lost season because those were the headlines. The Mets weren't winning games. Let's talk about something juicier. Let's talk about who's the problem in the clubhouse. Nobody's talking about that anymore. The Mets are 10 games over 500 for the first time all season long, approaching 80 wins, when some fans at the beginning of the season didn't even think they would reach 75. Come on. Like, this is a full circle moment. I predicted 85, you predicted 87. There's a handful of people predicted a little bit more than us or right on par with us. But at the end of the day, these guys are having fun. And I'm having a lot of fun sitting on my damn couch watching them. And a guy like Aaron in section 110 watching them, watching a gem of a performance from Mr. Luis Severino last night. As a Mets fan, after a season like we had last year, when this organization was in limbo, fired their manager, let go of the GM and Billy Epler, and had the personnel changeover, both on the field and in the front office, this has to feel good. Not only for this season, whatever happens this season, but for seasons moving forward. And I figured I might as well just go on that rant right now, because they proved a lot already to me this season. Yes, they need to make the playoffs. Would love for the Mets to make the playoffs. But I'm confident as a fan what's going on at the top all the way down to the bottom to make this team a sustainable winner and keep on adding on to this team for future seasons. Yep. And that's what's important. It's a cultural change, Rob. We always talk about that. A cultural change. When you get knocked down, how do you get back up? The Mets got knocked down plenty of times this season. And guess what? Somehow, some way, they've always got back up right on their feet. That should make everyone proud. But listen, we got a game tonight. It's game 139. Mets are looking to get to 75 wins. David Peterson has been spectacular, is leading the way. We got a lineup here. This is my first time looking at the lineup. Mark Vientos hitting third, right? That's awesome. I like to see that. I haven't been really paying attention to the actual statistics of everybody over the last 2 weeks because, like I said, it's been hard for me to keep up. I've been watching games here and there, but right now I'm locked in. I'm back. Doesn't matter what. Let's get it. 139, Rob. 139. 11 games more to hit my mark. 13 games more to hit your mark. And they may not even need to hit that mark to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But this is a true race, and I love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, like you're just talking about 13 wins, 11 wins for you. Like that's under 500. That's just under 500, over 500. That's not anything spectacular to get to 86, 85, 86, 87 wins. Anything better than that, we're talking about 90. Like that's how crazy it's been. And what's even more funny, and you just brought up before we really dive into the game today. It starts at the top. The confidence with Davidson. Now, if he didn't believe it, but just wanted to say it to the media, to portray it to the fan base and the team that way, it worked. Because he always believed in his team. Remember when he says competitive, he believes they're a playoff team, just like Steve Cohen said. I mean, a lot of people laughed at that. Like, are you serious? Look at this roster. When people up top believe in you and you actually show it at the deadline and get needs at the deadline, it's amazing how a team responds when the top level executives believe in you. It's a huge difference. That's why I said I felt like in 2022, the executives and the people at the top screwed that team. I felt that the confidence level of the team, that their own bosses didn't believe in them, is a huge deal. And right now, I think because Stearns believed in him and Cohen believed in him, and they made it very clear publicly, not just behind closed doors, I think that does go a long way. And then you prove it at the deadline, not with the top guys, but guys that are solid, quality, where you need it, in back end rotation, bullpen, couple of a bench bat like Winker, who is the best available bench bat on the market. That shows confidence in your team. And they're showing it right now. And, it's paying dividends at the moment. Again, we still got just under a month of baseball. So a lot of things can change. We saw what happened in 5 days. The Mets went from 4 to a game and a half a game in a week. So things can happen quickly. But let's talk about tonight's game. This lineup is look at the depth of this lineup. Alvarez is batting ninth. I know he's been bad. And I talked about it a lot with people in the chat yesterday, that people would rather see Torrens over Alvarez. And I understand why. But you know what? We need Alvarez to get going. I know we need to win ball games as well. But you have to play him enough to give him enough at-bats. And Mendoza has done a great job giving everybody at-bats. You can't bury Alvarez here, just like you can't bury Bader. He's not in the lineup tonight, but you can't bury Bader, who is struggling right now. You need to play him, not every day, but enough where you get him going. That's your starting catcher and your starting center fielder. I want to get your thoughts on that. So since a lot of people have been talking about Alvarez a lot and the struggles he's been going through offensively, and let's be honest, defensively as well. How are you feeling with Alvarez right now? It's hard to say, do you trust him right now? But are you still willing to giving him a shot right now and still putting him in the lineup, even though Torrens has been outstanding as a backup? What are your thoughts on Alvarez before we really dive deep into this game and lineup?
Yeah. So I've always, this whole entire season, no matter what the performances were, I've always been a fan of the double catcher, the 2-catcher lineup, right? 1 DHs, especially when JD Martinez is either his day off or congratulations to him on the paternity list, right? Like either one of those. If JD's not in the equation, I love the 2-catcher lineup. I really do think that, listen, make no mistake about it. He can struggle all he wants. He's the catcher of the future. You have to believe in Francisco Alvarez, and that's my full mindset. I know that's not the popular answer because right now, in order to make the playoffs, everybody needs to be clicking all cylinders. The best guy plays, et cetera, et cetera. But I really do think that if the Mets, and they haven't done it yet, and I'm very glad that they haven't, if they were to abandon Francisco Alvarez, yeah, it might kill his confidence a little bit, but you know what? I really do think that this guy is going to have a huge impact on this team when it comes down to it. We're going to be talking about a moment in September when Francisco Alvarez comes up and the Mets need a huge hit from him, or they need a huge defensive play. And guess what? If the Mets, in my book, if they continue to believe in him, right? Because listen, Francisco Alvarez is not making or breaking the New York Mets right now. So as long as that's consistent, then it's okay for him to be in the lineup and it's okay for him to be catching. But I really do think there's going to be a moment that we're going to look back on this stream later on in September, or maybe perhaps if the Mets are even playing October baseball, that Francisco Alvarez is going to come up huge. And you know what? That moment may never come. This is just me being perhaps optimistic. It might be me being optimistic because I do like Francisco Alvarez and I think he's going to snap out of it. I know he's in a huge rut. I know it's an extended rut, but I really do think he's going to snap out of it. But let's say he comes up and does something huge in September. would that ever happen if you go ahead and decide to bench him,
Correct.
right, in early September? And I know he's not a guy that his confidence is gonna waver because he always seems confident whether he's performing well or not, but it happens, right? This guy wants to perform, just like same thing as Edwin Diaz. All these guys, they wanna perform. They don't wanna do terrible. They don't wanna perform poorly, right? So, especially given his age, given where the Mets are at in terms of just the youth that's going to be present on this team, I really do think this is a long-winded answer, and I'm kind of all over the place, and I apologize about that, but I really do think that it's important. These are my thoughts summed up. I think it's important, and I think it's necessary for Francisco Alvarez to continue to see playing time despite the struggles, because I don't think his poor performance, right, is losing the Mets any ball game. Sure, if he performed better, right, they'd maybe win a couple more ball games, or if he was out of the lineup and Tyrone Taylor was getting more playing time, etc. Whoever, right? It doesn't matter how you shake the lineup up. But I really do think that there's going to be a time. This is my positive, optimistic thought. That later on in September, we're going to see Alvarez come up in a huge situation. We're going to look back on the stream right now and the thing that I'm saying right now and saying that it's necessary for him to play because he's going to snap out of it and he's going to come through for the Mets. It may not be tonight. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be a week from now. But the Mets, as long as they're in this race, they're going to need Francisco Alvarez. He's going to come up huge for the Mets. And September 3rd, 2024, I'll clip this and I'll post it. And that's where we're gonna go from there. But yeah, no, I like it. I think Alvarez needs to keep playing. I have
Yeah,
confidence.
yeah, and I agree with that. And you know what? I think it's a lot of Met fans have recency bias, and I think that's the issue, because last year he was the only guy I wanted up in a big spot. He had a lot of big hits last year. And I know it was a season, a bad season for us. It wasn't really a popular or exciting season for us. But he was a guy that, when the Mets were still, quote unquote, in it, was getting a lot of big hits against Tampa Bay. He had like a week stretch where he was just winning ball games for us and he was getting a big hit. He has that potential. And I feel like Mendoza don't want to, you can't bury the kid. You can't bury your starting catcher, right? As good as Torrens has been as a backup, you have to continue to roll at least most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time with Alvarez, because he is a guy that if he gets going, this is a guy that I want up at the plate when he's going well, because he is a clutch player. He's not afraid of the moment. We've seen that already in his young career. We've seen that. And what worries me is the defensive part, because he's so worried about framing pitches that a lot of balls are getting behind him and he's not blocking balls in the dirt. And I'm not sure why any catching coach would ever teach a catcher to, especially with runners on base, to always worrying about framing a pitch. Like the other day, and I brought it up on the channel, the ball bounced in front of the plate and he was still trying to frame a pitch for a strike with a runner on. And what happened? The ball got behind him. He tried to backhand it. The ball got behind him and the runner moved to third. Like, you can't do that. Like, if you want to mess around with that when there's nobody on base, so be it. But when there's people on base, you got to actually be a catcher. And you got to block the ball. You got to get down. And he did a little bit more of that last year. He has done none of that this year. And that worries me a little bit, because in a big game, which most of these are now, I can't have a runner that could be a big runner in a ball game move to another base or get in scoring position, because I'm not calling him lazy. He's doing what the coaches are telling him. So I'm not going to kill him, because it's not really his fault, because he's a kid. He's going to listen to the coaches. He's just taught in a way where it scares me that in a big game, that defensive way of catching and the way he's learning might cost us. And that concerns me even more than his bat, because I think his bat's going to come on.
So I agree, I guess. Are you talking about his stance when he catches, when he's on one knee, or
Not
what are you talking about?
necessarily, because I've seen catchers be on one knee and still be able to block the ball. If you watch Alvarez, he never gets on his knees to block a ball in the dirt. He's always trying to backhand it this way, push it up that way. He's always trying to catch the ball in a framing position. and it's like his wrist is always like tight everywhere he goes. He's always just like this anywhere he goes, and I think that's the issue. I don't think it's stance. I just think the positioning of his body when a ball's in the dirt, specifically with runners on, he needs to get down and block the ball. If you notice, look, you'll probably see it tonight because there'll be a ball in the dirt. He'll try to backhand the ball and try to pick it instead of getting in front of the ball and blocking it. And I think that's what worries me more than his bat.
I'll watch the blocking tonight because, like I said, I just really haven't been able to watch I guess those sort of fine details over the last couple of weeks. But I'll make an effort to watch that tonight. But I saw a very interesting breakdown from John Boy just a couple of days ago about that Baltimore game. I'm not sure if you saw this on X Rob on the John Boy Media account, but the Baltimore game, where I think Corbin Burns was chirping at the umpire because the Orioles were just getting absolutely hosed on a lot of non-strikes that the umpire was just completely fooled. He did a breakdown, John Boy did, on Alvarez's positioning behind the plate in terms of creating a lane for the umpire. So he's setting up not in the middle of the plate, but he's setting up slightly staggered to the umpire, so the umpire has a clear view of the plate and Alvarez isn't blocking it, and that is sort of not impeding the umpire's view. And I guess, I don't know, the sort of angle's weird or something like that. But you see the difference. I'll actually send it to you after this stream. I encourage everybody to go ahead and watch that. Just scroll down on the John Boy Media account. But it was a brilliant breakdown. And I think that is something that I've come accustomed to in terms of liking from Alvarez behind the plate, is knowing that he is constantly working on the staggering of his stance to steal more strikes. Now, I completely agree, and I completely trust you in your analysis of him not being able to block and him having a lot of pass balls, etc. I do think some of that is growing pains. I do think some of that is maybe just, I don't want to say like
Coaching?
complacency, because I don't think that he's that type of player, right? But maybe there's some fine tuning that needs to be done from the coaching staff to get him back on track. But this was a guy that we were just praising and marveling, right? Just months ago, especially last season, but definitely early on in this season, that his defense was phenomenal. Framing, blocking, throwing runners out. So I'm not completely off the bandwagon that he's going to be coming back down to earth as a catcher in terms of being poor defensively. I still do think he has his strong traits, right? We've seen it just as recently as that Baltimore series a couple weeks ago, but there's some validity to it. But I think the main point remains in this scenario of this topic is that, and you agree with this as well, right? No matter what the analysis is that you cannot bury him as a catcher. He's going to need the experience. He's going to come up big, and his power, his raw power, although it hasn't been present for most of the season, if he finds it, if he finds that stretch, which I just told you 5 minutes ago when we were talking about it, that he's going to find that stretch, and it's going to come at the most important time for the Mets. And my prediction, you got to let the kid play. You have to let him play. So I don't know. That's my take on that. But the lineup in general tonight, I mean, you're right. This is as deep as right of a lineup that the Mets can put out, knowing that JD Martinez isn't available, knowing that Tyrone Taylor is not in the lineup today, knowing that you have all these reinforcements and these backups to come in, and this is still the lineup that you're throwing out. I love it. Jose Iglesias hasn't dropped off one bit, in my personal opinion. That guy is still as clutch as ever. Starling Marte, I don't really know what Starling Marte's been doing, right? But I feel comfortable that he's back. Jesse Winker, after Mets fans have been killing Jesse Winker, not enough extra base hits. He's got a 630 OPS. Go take a look at what Jesse Winker's been doing over the last 2 weeks. Then come back to me and then talk, because I was Jesse Winker's biggest believer, right? As soon as that trade happened, I loved it. I couldn't talk about it because I was on vacation, but I loved it. Listen, I think we need to pump the brakes. And I'm not saying that it's reactionary. If you want to see Luis Torrens play over Francisco Alvarez, because obviously the performance perhaps merits it. Luis Torrens, by the way, offensively, he's fantastic. Defensively, it feels like nobody can steal on that guy. So I understand being comfortable with Luis Torrens right now, more so, especially in pivotal games. But I think we need to be a little bit less reactionary. And I think we need to just let the kid play, and we need to see what happens from here on out. Because, like I said, the Mets aren't losing ball games just because of Francisco Alvarez and Francisco Alvarez alone. It takes more of an effort than that. I agree. Pass balls, they're not really acceptable right now. But I really think that you just gotta let the kid play. That's what I'll say, Rob.
Yeah, and I've said that a couple of times. Listen, I'm disappointed on how he's played this year overall, but it's not like I want to bench the kid. You're not benching your starting catcher for Luis Torrens. You're just not. As good as Luis Torrens has been, he's still a journeyman backup catcher. Like he is that, and he's great defensively. But again, this is the moments where you got to give Alvarez enough chances to figure it out, because I think he will. I think he's young. He's smart. You can tell how smart the kid is, baseball sense wise, but he is very young. There's going to be, little bumps in the road. You just hope he figures it out, because getting that bat going, and I'm not even talking about defensive, I'm talking about his bat. Getting his bat going in this lineup right now, I mean, which team wants to face this lineup if everybody's going like that? Like, it's already a deep lineup. I mean, look at all the 20 home run guys we got all of a sudden. Like, we used to talk about maybe 2 guys that have 20 plus home runs. I mean, that's how good this team has been. So with Alvarez, hopefully getting it together over these last couple of weeks of the season, you got to play him. Like, Torrens is going to play his games. He's going to play his Sunday games. He's going to play probably twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. But you're going to see Alvarez most of the time. And again, like you said, Chris, he's not losing you ball games. And the Mets are still winning despite Alvarez's struggles. Again, could it bite us in the ass? Sure. But I'd rather go down with Alvarez, with our starting catcher, with our young top prospect that everybody wanted up not too long ago last year or earlier, 2 years ago, right? Everybody wants him up. Don't bury him now. And because you're going to hurt him long term. And I think it's going to benefit us if the big spots come later in this month or in the playoffs or in years to come. So keep him in the lineup. You're batting him 9th. So, that tells you that, all right, let's take all the pressure off this kid and let's see if he can find himself again right now, batting 9th. Because when you're batting bad, guess where you're batting? You're most likely batting 9th. So that's where he is right now. But let's talk about the pitching matchup. We talked a little. You brought up David Peterson, how damn good he's been, right? We're all confident in today's game because Peterson's on the mound. We, as Met fans, we kind of like hesitate when we say that because it's like, did I just say that? But it's a fact. The stats prove it. He's been that good, but got a tough matchup against Crawford today. The Mets, yesterday with Bello, he's been a good pitcher for the Red Sox. And, I'm not saying the Mets, beat him up, but they got to him. You see, they worked the counts. They put the bat on the ball. They did what they needed to do. They added on runs throughout the game, which is a killer for any team that is facing a team that adds on. And it's like little razor, cuts. Just little by little, right? You're not killing them quickly. You're killing them slowly. And it's a killer for a team. Let's be honest. This Red Sox team is very desperate at this point right now. Now they're 4.5 games out of a wild card spot. They're slowly losing ground. And this is a team that's going to be very desperate. It's also a dangerous team when they're desperate. They're a talented team, and they're desperate. So what are your thoughts on this pitching matchup today? You already said you're confident with Peterson on the mound. But, a desperate team is a dangerous team, Chris.
Yeah, I agree. And I really didn't know anything about Cutter Crawford. I just kind of just looked it up as you were talking here. I wanted to see what his arsenal was. He's not going to overpower you with the fastball. It's about 92 miles per hour. But the cutter and the splitter, we always talk about the splitter, right, Rob? The splitter from opposing pitchers, especially in that dreaded Seattle Mariners series, right? We all want to forget about it, but we have to bring it back up. The splitter has given the lineup perpetual problems, and that is, although he only uses it just above an 8% clip, Cutter Crawford, yes, he does throw a cutter, by the way, for someone who was mentioning that in the chat. Cutter Crawford does throw a cutter. His splitter is one of his best pitches, too, so look out for that. But I definitely agree with you 100%. A desperate team is a dangerous team. Let's not mistake it, right? The Boston Red Sox are talented. They got talented individuals on that team. They played some pretty poor defense, as did the Mets yesterday, from what I saw. Like I said, I just got back home yesterday and I was able to catch some of the game. But I really am confident in the Mets tonight. David Peterson, he's been phenomenal. He's using his full arsenal as well. I mean, his four-seam sinker combination has been awesome. His changeup has been awesome. And he's really finding those off-speed pitches. What has always been the problem with David Peterson in seasons past that we've always talked about? It's been his lack of competitiveness, right? One, it's been, can he find the strike zone? Because that's really the main thing that we've always talked about David Peterson. But second is, can he find the strike zone when he's already ahead of the count and not waste too many pitches for him to get past the fourth or fifth inning? And that's what he's been doing consistently as of recent. So I'm expecting it to continue today. I'm expecting his success to continue. Like I said, he's 8-1 in the season. He's got a 2.83 ERA. Yeah, the advanced statistics still need some work, but you know what? Advanced statistics, they're predictive measurements, and sometimes there's a time and place for it, right? Extra or expected statistics, right? Expected batting average, and everything else in between that you want to analyze. Those are all fine and good because, like I said, the process is usually one that those statistics will tell you how a pitcher is throwing, right? In the ERA category, in the whip category, in the wins losses column, right? All that good stuff. But there's a certain point where you have to let those go and just appreciate what he's been doing and the stat lines that he's been producing. And that's what I've just kind of let go, and I've started to appreciate what David Peterson is doing out there. So yeah, 100%. David Peterson, looking for him to sort of mix his pitches once again, maybe use the changeup a little bit more tonight because I think he's had very good success with that changeup for this whole entire season. And I'm expecting this to be a tough test for the Mets lineup. Like I said, Cutter Crawford's talented, but with this Mets offense, right, that we've seen especially recent, especially from the guy at the top of the lineup, Francisco Lindor being that table setter, Jesse Winker coming around, Jose Iglesias on par with what he's been doing ever since he got called up, Jeff McNeil, who's looked different in the second half than he has in the first half. And yes, even with a Francisco Alvarez that is struggling, I'm expecting the Mets to do some good things tonight. It's an exciting pitching matchup. I think it's going to be a tough test for the Mets. The Boston Red Sox are talented. A desperate team, like you said, is always a dangerous team, but there's no excuses. The bottom line is there's no excuses for the Mets. And I want to make sure everybody in this chat doesn't get that twisted. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for the Mets. I just said at the top of this podcast in the stream that the Mets played their way into having minimal room for error. There's a lack of a room for error right now, right? So if they go out there and they blow it, guess what? I'm going to come back on here tomorrow and tell you that they blew it. And I'm not going to make any excuses for them. But all in all, they've been playing fantastic baseball. So let's see that continue tonight. I'm excited for it. I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there is no more excuses. And listen, it will be a disappointment if this team don't make the playoffs. As good as they played, it's going to be a disappointment. Even the Mets fans that didn't believe in his team are going to be disappointed that they didn't make the playoffs. That means they did not play well down the stretch. I mean, look, if they get to 90 wins, everybody's going to talk about May. If they would have went 500, they might have had 95 wins. It might not have been talking about, the wild card at the wire, last games of the season, right? And look, the fact is they got to play one game at a time, right? You can't look 3 days from now, 5 days from now. Shoot, you can't even look at game 3 of this series because, I was getting into it with a lot of people, and even Hector talked about it a lot. Me and him disagree on this, right? he was like, "Oh, you got to sweep a series. Like we want to sweep. We need a sweep, right?" Going into a series before it even starts and talking about a sweep is a dangerous game to play because more often than not, you're going to be disappointed. I did the math. If they win series, this is going back from the San Diego series. If they win series, they're going to be right around the 86 to 89 win mark. Just winning series. And that's including splitting that 4-game series with the Phillies. So that's where they can get if they sweep one, which they already did with the White Sox. If they sweep another one and continue to win series, they're at the 90 win mark. Like that's where they could be. Obviously they got to win more, and this is not even winning every series. This is just winning most of their remaining series. So this team, this whole, picture that we see right now, it's looking good. And we do have I think we have the toughest schedule in baseball with the remaining schedules, and Atlanta has one of the easiest. But the Mets have played really well against good teams. And they've proved it for 3 months now, since the end of May, June, July, and August, and now we're in September. I believe in this team. I'm weary of saying it because I don't say it enough, and we don't get these opportunities enough to say that we believe in this team, because there's too many Met fans. And if the Mets lose a game, they always come out of the woodworks out of nowhere and start talking about, the end of the world and the end of this organization. I feel confident in this team. I believe in this team, right? If some of you don't, that's your opinion. You're allowed to have it, obviously, and we can argue about it. But this team, this core, let me be clear, because I've been very down on this core very much over the last couple of seasons. Now, the core as a whole has been pretty damn good. Certain guys need to be better. Now, I've seen a little bit more power from Pete Alonso, and I do want to bring him up, since I've been kind of quiet on Pete Alonso over the last about a week now. But he's been showing a little bit more power. I've always kept on saying, and Chris, you could probably get my back on this over the year. I've complained about Pete Alonso not only with his average, but the power in better spots. Right? He would hit that solo home run in the beginning of a game and then strike out 3 times. He would hit an irrelevant home run late in the ball game. He's been hitting a little bit more meaningful home runs, even if they're solo home runs, but they've been in better moments. And he's been swinging a little bit better. I'd like to see more contact, but I feel like he's more balanced at the plate. He's looking like a better hitter at the plate. He's being more selective, not a guessing type of hitter. He's not guessing as much as he was 3 weeks ago. He's selective now with the pitches. He's not swinging at that slider every single time. He's still doing it, but not enough, not a lot. And I think he's putting better quality at bats together. I know you've been away. I know you haven't been watching a ton, but what you have been seeing over this course of a year and maybe recently, what have you noticed with Pete Alonso? Because we talked about it. If this guy gets going, this is a dynamic lineup, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Pete Alonso. Whether we believe in Pete Alonso is one thing. I do believe in Pete Alonso. Let me just say that. Do I believe him to be an everyday dynamic difference maker in the middle of the order, being the 3 or 4 hitter? Depends. It depends. I mean, I've called out Pete Alonso. You've called out Pete Alonso. But at the end of the day, right, we've asked for him. We've asked one simple thing out of Pete Alonso. We've asked him to come around. We've asked him to hit in meaningful situations. And when it matters the most, over the last 7 days, let's be fair, he has been doing it. Now, I haven't been able to watch him, and if he's been able to lay off the low and out slider, which has been his kryptonite all season long, I will watch it from here on out. Let's hope that it continues, right? If you just said that he's been doing a little bit less, I trust your analysis. I trust your judgment. I want to continue to see that. But at the end of the day, we are still going to be talking about Pete Alonso for the rest of the season. Whatever happens this offseason, doesn't matter. I do think there's going to be good news around the Pete Alonso situation for the Mets. That's maybe just my hopelessly optimistic thought process. But right now, we are locked in with Pete Alonso. He's a New York Met. We root for him. And I do have full confidence, right, that he is going to be up there as a unit in this core with Francisco Lindor and turn it around for the New York Mets when they need it the most. I do believe that. I believe in Pete Alonso. I think he's a great hitter, especially when he's hitting gap to gap. And yes, that means opposite field as well. And I think that he is definitely going to reach 35 home runs for whoever just said that in the chat. He's definitely going to reach 35 home runs. But what are the situations? Is he going to come through in the situations, right? That for the most part, we've been kind of disappointed in him this season for not coming through up until this point. So that's what I'm watching out for Pete Alonso. If the answer to the question is, right, if you ask me, do I believe in Pete Alonso from now until the end of the season, my answer is going to be yes. I'm a little bit weary, but my answer is going to be yes, partly because I have no choice but to believe in Pete Alonso. But listen, let's give the guy some credit. He's been coming around a little bit. He's been coming around. Yeah, the 240 average is what it is. But what can you do for me in spots where we need you the most with runners in scoring position? No matter what the situation is, 0 outs, 1 out, 2 outs, two out RBIs are like gut punches to the other team. So I always love to see that. And that's what Jose Iglesias does by far better than a lot of other people on this team. But nonetheless, it's a team game. This lineup looks great. This lineup looks fantastic. I mean, is anybody complaining about this lineup? Because I'm not. I think this lineup looks fantastic. I don't care where Mark Vientos is hitting. Pete Alonso's back at the 4 spot. I love it. So, yeah, I mean, not to skirt around the question, I think your question was, do I believe in Pete Alonso and what have I seen from him? Have I seen enough? Depends on what he's asking for with his contract, but that's a discussion for later. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, man, it's good vibes right now. We got to talk about the good vibes, and that is the Mets looking for their 75th win of the season. So yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. And look, his RBI total is 76 right now. With 30 home runs, you would think he would be closer to 90, around that. That just shows you that he's hit a lot of home runs that with nobody on base. And that's been the struggle, right? That has been the Achilles heel for Pete Alonso. That has been the frustration point, at least with me, with Pete Alonso. I don't feel confidence in him with people on base. And it's not even just the home run. It's just, how about hitting the ball in the gap, scoring those 2 runs on base? You know, like little things like that. He hasn't been driving the ball with runners on base. And that worries me, because what does that tell you in those spots? He's starting to freeze up a little bit. He's starting to tighten up a little bit at the plate, squeezing that bat a little tighter. You know, not feeling, feeling a little fidgety, as Ken said in the chat, right? That's the way he looks at the plate. And then he becomes a guest hitter in that spot. And that's when he becomes a really bad hitter. And I don't think Pete Alonso is a bad hitter. I don't think anybody can say that. But he needs to be more smarter in those situations. Like, hey, runner on third, 1 out. It's okay to hit a sac fly. Get the ball to the outfield. Stop grounding out or striking out. It's little things like that Pete Alonso needs to get better at. And it's annoying to say year 6 of his career and ready for his free agent period, you got to be better. And it's not just nitpicking on Pete Alonso, but we know we're doing it because we know how important he is to the middle of this lineup. He is one of our RBI threats. He is one of our run producers. Now, lucky for us, we have Lindor and we have Vientos, who is providing that power and that run production as well. Because if there was no Vientos, this team would be in trouble, because Alonso is usually our number 1 run producer, and Pete Alonso has been like our 3rd, 4th, 5th best run producer. But good news is we got Winker, we got Iglesias. Like that's the crazy part. Like we got guys that are not afraid of the moment up and down this lineup now, and I love it. Like, who doesn't want Lindor up? Who doesn't want Winker up or Iglesias up in big spots? In Vientos, for that matter. Like, we can talk about other guys now that we want up in big spots. That wasn't the case even 2 years ago. There might have been 1 guy, maybe 2, We're talking about 3, 4, 5 that we want up at the plate in a big spot. So good news is, okay, Chris, I'm sorry.
No. I think I just want to add on that my assessment, right, of this lineup is that there's only 3 guys that I can confidently say, right, that have put this team on their back in this lineup. It's been Lindor, it's been Vientos, and it's been Iglesias. Those are only really 3 guys that have shown me, right, for the majority of this season. I'm not saying this whole season because they're going to go into slumps because they're human like everybody else in this league, right? But those 3 guys have at some point put this team on their backs. And Brandon Nimmo, for the most part, for a little bit of the part, right, of the earlier this season, he did the same thing, but he's kind of fallen off more so than anything. But like, it takes a complete lineup, right? Pete Alonso, has he put this team on his back? No. Has he helped this team? Yes. We need guys that are going to help this lineup. These guys, I get it that some of the expectations are that they're supposed to carry the team. I really don't think outside of Francisco Lindor, right? Especially talking about next season, I don't think that anybody right here that we see in this graphic is going to carry this lineup on their backs, which is okay. To be honest with you, it's okay because we've seen this season, all of these guys have been producing, right? Here and there, and it's produced 74 wins thus far. No, they're not as good as they could be, right? If maybe Pete Alonso did carry them on their backs, but I'm not really sure Pete Alonso is the guy that's going to carry a team on his back. Like, I'm not sure if that's ever what we're going to get out of Pete Alonso. So I'm starting to personally stop believing in that, talking about it less, and just appreciating what he's doing right now and what he can do for me in the future and what he can do for this team in the future. But am I expecting him to absolutely carry? And honestly, that might be bad of me to say. And it honestly is probably good on your part that you're still holding out that faith in Pete Alonso to carry this team. But if we haven't seen it so far this season, right, I would hope that he can go on a tear, right? Maybe he's going on a little bit of a mini tear right now, but I don't know if he's going to sign a 5-6 year deal, if he's ever going to be a guy that can carry you in clutch situations for the entirety of the season. But what I do know what you'll get out of him is that you will get a consistent, more or less, 30, 35, 40 home run hitter, and he'll produce for you. And as long as you put 6, 7 of those type of guys in the lineup, you're going to win more often than not. Now it's just a matter of finding the value dollar-wise for that type of production.
Correct.
Right? For that type of production instead of a guy that can carry you, because we're talking about 75 to 85, $90 million difference in the contract for a guy that can carry you, like a Francisco Lindor, because he got paid like it and he's doing it right now, versus a guy that I'm talking about Pete Alonso might be, and the guy that's going to be good for you, but he's not going to carry a team on his back for you like you and I have been wanting for this entire season. So it's okay. It's perfectly okay to lower those expectations. But like I said, this is a complete lineup, and that's what matters. The majority of these guys, right, if not all of them, have produced for this team at some point in the season. And I love that.
Yeah, and Chris, and I'm great you brought up the lineup and this whole lineup, not just Pete Alonso, because of the fact that we talked about this all year. We talked about this during the offseason, that I'd rather have a complete lineup of solid hitters, quality hitters, than one big time power guy, RBI guy, and then anybody else being like, eh. Like, when you have quality hitters in this lineup, throughout your lineup, it's a totally different lineup, because it's not, the pitcher doesn't have to worry about one guy. He has to worry about multiple guys, right? Even with Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, right? Pitchers can still go through a lineup like that, because if you don't let those 2 guys kill you, you have a better chance of winning. Every night, we're talking about somebody else winning the ballgame for the Mets. Iglesias, big RBI up the middle in Arizona. Jeff McNeil after the All-Star break. Jesse Winker the other day. And about a week and a half ago when he hit that game-winning home run. Lindor constantly. Nimmo for a month was just destroying. There's been a guy every week that are winning games for us up and down this lineup. Even Alvarez, a little bit this year where he did produce, he's done something. So, and that's what I love about this team. And that's why I'm confident in this team, because at any given day, somebody can come up with the big hit. And yes, even Pete Alonso. So I just want to bring that name up there before everybody thinks I'm just going to be negative on him. That's why I like this team so much, because it isn't just Lindor and Alonso like it has been the last couple of seasons. It's more than that. And that's why if this team can get to that next level and make the playoffs, why wouldn't you be confident going into a series against anybody? Against anybody, because nobody can tell me that there's another team that has a complete lineup like the New York Mets depth-wise. I've looked at it multiple times because even I thought I was freaking crazy. Look at these lineups. Find me another 7 through 9 that is better than what we have right now on this lineup today. There's a lot of guys that are hitting a $150, $190, barely 200. You got Iglesias batting 300. You got McNeil looking like a better hitter than he was, 4 months ago, right? Even Alvarez is still a better hitter than most number 9 hitters, even when he's struggling on other teams. It's crazy to think, but that's why I'm so confident, Chris. And I love that you brought that up about it's the whole lineup. It's not just one guy, because everybody has done something at some point this year. And that's why this team is dangerous. And all we needed was a little bit more quality pitching, and we've been getting that now. And it's all coming together. And we talked about this. If this team comes together as a whole, we're really going to see what they can do. And look, 21 games over 500 since May 30th. Now 10 games over 500. They're finally coming together as a whole. And we're seeing what they can do against good teams and now bad teams as well, just like we saw with the White Sox. So they're coming together just at the right time. We just hope they can get over that hump to get to the playoffs, and anything can happen when you make the playoffs. So I'm ready. I'm excited. We got about 20 minutes until game time. I'm excited. We've been here over an hour. We're excited. We're both back. Pre-game, post-game, morning show, afternoon show, night show. I mean, you guys are going to get sick of our faces. But guess what? If the Mets are winning, you're going to deal with us, just like we deal with each other every single day. Trust me, guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. You're excited. Chris is excited. We're back. It's fun. Finally, I get to talk to somebody else. Like, I tell you right now, sometimes you know how it is, because doing solo shows, it's not easy doing solo shows. You're talking to yourself. You're looking at the screen, making sure your hat is not backwards or stupid, or, you got boogers in your nose or something. Like, you're just constantly thinking about nonsense. And look, having a show with a co-host is always a lot more fun, because there's a lot of back and forth and it's more fun. So I'm definitely glad you're back, because it's a hell of a lot of fun. So give me your final thoughts about today's game, and if you're going to be doing a post game, and let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You are not wrong. Solo live streams are always a struggle. I can back you up on that 100%. We do it, right, because we love the chat. That's why I interact with the chat so much, just to make sure I'm not going insane and getting everybody's perspectives and not talking to myself, right? But we do it because we love this team. And we appreciate you all supporting us. It's great to be back on the channel. It's great to be back talking Mets baseball. It's great to be watching games at a reasonable time now, not having to wait up till 2 or 3 in the morning to catch some of the game before I inevitably fall asleep. But I'm excited. I agree with you. A lot of content coming on this channel. A lot of wins, hopefully, to talk about between now and the end of the season, hopefully into October. Yes, the Mets have a tough schedule. They play the Braves and the Phillies a bunch. They also see the Nationals and also a very good Brewers team in that last series of the season. It's going to be a tough test. But if the Mets pull through, if they weather the storm, then you know that these guys are legit. And I already think that they're legit. I thought they've been legit for a little bit now, especially over the last couple of months, because they've kind of proved that to us. But you will see if they pull through for a playoff spot, given them having a top 5 toughest right? Whatever the barometer for that is, I guess opponent's record, right? Or a percentage of wins for the rest of the season, then these guys are going to solidify themselves as legit. And like you said, anything happens in the playoffs. This team can make a Cinderella run, or they can get bounced in the wild card series. We don't know. Anything in between can happen as well. But all I know is that me personally, very happy to be back on the channel talking Mets baseball. I decided to be completely shut out on vacation, hands off, enjoy my time, rest up, get rejuvenated, because I knew when I got back, this is going to be a long, tough stretch, right, for the Mets and for also me talking about this team. So a lot of content on the way between Rob and myself. For those of you all who know John from Pure Adrenaline Sports, going to link up with him on some post-game content as well. He does great play-by-play live streams almost every single night. So make sure you go check out Pure Adrenaline Sports and subscribe. Get him over there to 4,000 subscribers as well. And you know what? Like I said, I'll be joining John and we'll be doing some post-game streams. I think Rob, you might try to come in and we can do a little bit of a trio post-game set whenever you're available. I know work schedule is tough, but listen, I love this community. I appreciate you all. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as always and the thumbs up on this stream. If you're subscribed to Rob, come subscribe to me and vice versa. If you're not subscribed to Rob, how would anyone not be subscribed to Rob at this point? Please tell me. I appreciate you all. Let's go Mets. No post game tonight. I really wanted to do one. I have a fantasy draft though. I have a fantasy draft, and
football
as you
next
can tell,
week.
you can tell I'm kind of excited for football season. I got my Giants here in the back. We'll see how that season goes, but maybe if I get some time, the draft is at a really bad time, especially when we're talking about the end of tonight's game for the Mets. So if anything, catch the post game tomorrow. Like I said, check out Pure Adrenaline Sports. You'll see me on that channel quite a bit. We'll be doing dual live streams just like Rob and I do. We'll be doing dual live streams to this channel and Pure Adrenaline Sports. Lots of fun stuff coming up, guys. Keep rocking with us. Definitely appreciate it. Let's go Mets.
Absolutely. It definitely will be a grind the last month of September going into a playoff race right now. And listen, we'll be here to talk you down the ledge or, talk about being even more excited. But it will be a grind. It will be, look, you're going to be biting your nails. You're going to be watching every pitch. You're going to be just ready to just go crazy on every little moment of a game. And listen, this is what we want as fans. We want to be in it to win it. I know that's a cliche saying, but that's where we want to be, and we're there right now. Mets are looking to take a series against the Red Sox with Peterson and Crawford on the mounds for both respective teams. We'll see what the Mets got in store for us. Hopefully they win, and we can talk tomorrow about going for another sweep, and it will be against the Boston Red Sox. With that said, guys, appreciate you guys tuning in to another amazing Mets pregame show right here on both of our channels. Have a great night. Enjoy the game. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you next time, guys. Have a great night.
Let's go Mets.